Let me ask you something straight from the heart. Have you ever bent over backwards, given your love unconditionally, forgiven over and over again, thinking maybe, just maybe, this time they'll change? You're trying to love the pain out of them, but instead you're bleeding while they keep smiling. Here's the truth you've been afraid to admit to yourself. Being nice won't change a narcissist, and the more you try, the more power you hand over to them. But don't worry, because there is something that will change everything, and today we're going to talk about it. You see, a narcissist is not moved by your kindness. They're fueled by control, by ego, by validation. When you're nice, when you tiptoe, explain, justify, or try to please, they don't interpret that as love. They see it as weakness. They use it. They twist it. They exploit it. So what does work? Clarity. Boundaries, self-respect, inner power. That's what a narcissist can't manipulate. You don't defeat a narcissist by becoming colder than them. You win by becoming stronger than their illusions. You stop trying to be nice in the way that makes you silent, small, and submissive. You start being powerful in your truth when you say no, without guilt, when you walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. When you choose your peace over their chaos, that's when things change. You see, narcissists aren't transformed by your love. They're confronted by your growth. They aren't rattled by your forgiveness. They're shaken when they realize they no longer control your narrative. So the moment you decide, I'm done explaining myself to someone committed to misunderstanding me, that's the moment you take back your life. And let me tell you something else, this isn't just about them. This is about you remembering who you were before their gaslighting made you doubt your worth, before you questioned your sanity, before you lost your fire trying to keep their ice from freezing you out. So no, being nice won't change a narcissist, but standing in your truth will change everything. Because once you step into your power, their hold over you disappears like a shadow in the light. And when that happens, you're not just free, you're unstoppable. When you're dealing with a narcissist, your natural instinct might be to lead with kindness. You think, if I just show more understanding, more patience, more love, they'll eventually see how much I care and change. But that approach, although noble, often backfires. Narcissists don't view your kindness through the same emotional lens that you do. They don't see it as an act of love. They interpret it as submission. To them, being nice is confirmation that they are still in control, that you're still playing by their rules. Every time you excuse bad behavior, brush off manipulation, or let them cross boundaries without consequence, you're silently sending the message that their behavior is acceptable. You're showing them that they can keep lying, gaslighting, and disrespecting you without real fallout. That doesn't activate their compassion. It activates their entitlement. It tells them that no matter what they do, you'll keep coming back. You'll keep forgiving. You'll keep giving them power. A narcissist thrives on validation. Your niceness becomes fuel. They use your empathy to justify their actions and continue their cycle of abuse. They twist your forgiveness into a license to hurt you again. The more you try to love them into changing, the more they see you as someone they can control. And the more control they feel, the less incentive they have to grow, reflect, or take accountability. Why would they change when their behavior still gets them what they want? This doesn't mean that being kind is wrong. It means that kindness without boundaries and self-respect becomes self-betrayal in the presence of a narcissist. It's not about becoming mean or cruel. It's about recognizing when your compassion is being weaponized against you. It's about understanding that your niceness is not disarming them. It's empowering them to continue a pattern that damages your soul and keeps you stuck. Your well-intentioned kindness can actually keep you locked in a toxic loop, where the narcissist maintains control and you keep shrinking. You keep adjusting, hoping for a breakthrough that never comes. In reality, the more tolerant and forgiving you are in the face of abuse, the deeper the narcissist's grip on your emotional and mental space becomes. To a healthy person, Kindness is a sign of strength, empathy, and connection. It opens the door to deeper trust and mutual respect. But when you're dealing with a narcissist, that same kindness is seen through a very different lens. It's not received as generosity or carrots interpreted as vulnerability, a crack in your armor they can exploit. Narcissists are constantly scanning for emotional openings they can use to maintain control, and your compassion becomes their most valuable tool. The moment you show empathy, they file it away for later. When you forgive them after a lie, they don't feel remorse. They feel reassurance. Reassurance that no matter how badly they behave, you'll tolerate it. When you comfort them after they mistreat you, they don't reflect on their actions. They deepen their belief that they can manipulate your emotions and get away with it. Narcissists don't respond to emotional cues like guilt, shame, or mutual understanding. They respond to opportunity, and every time your kindness overrides your instinct to protect yourself, they seize that opportunity. Manipulation doesn't always look like obvious control. Sometimes it's subtle, guilt, tripping you, twisting your words, playing the victim, or giving just enough affection to keep you hooked. They create situations where you feel responsible for their emotions. Suddenly, you're always explaining yourself, trying to prove you're not the bad guy. That's not love. That's psychological entrapment. And it often begins when your kindness is mistaken for weakness. Narcissists often push boundaries to test how far you'll bend. If you apologize when they've wronged you, they learn that they don't need to change. If you over-explain when they accuse you of something absurd, they learn that confusion is a weapon. And if you keep choosing peace over conflict, they learn that silence and control are tools that work. All of it stems from the way they view your kindness, not as an invitation to grow closer, but as leverage to push further. This dynamic leaves you exhausted, doubting yourself, and emotionally drained. You start believing that if you could just be nicer, more patient, more loving, they'd finally see your worth, but they already see it. That's why they target it. They exploit it because they know your kindness makes you more likely to stay, to try harder, and to question your own boundaries instead of theirs. One of the most powerful turning points in your relationship with a narcissist is when you finally learn to set boundaries, clear, immovable lines that protect your mental, emotional, and physical space. But for many people, especially those who are naturally empathetic, setting boundaries doesn't come easy. You worry about being too harsh. You fear being misunderstood or making the other person upset. And when guilt creeps in, you begin to question if you're being unfair or selfish. That internal conflict is exactly what a narcissist counts on to maintain control. Narcissists thrive in environments where there are no consequences. When you allow them to overstep, manipulate, or emotionally drain you without drawing a line, they come to believe they can do it forever. That's why change only happens when you take back your power, not by trying to change them, but by changing the terms of engagement. When you say, "This is what I will accept, and this is what I won't," you shift the dynamic entirely. You stop reacting and start leading. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you're being cold or unloving. It means you've learned to value your peace more than their approval. It means you're willing to say no even when it feels uncomfortable. It means you no longer engage in endless explanations or emotional acrobatics just to keep someone else calm or satisfied. The truth is, you're not responsible for how a narcissist reacts to your limits. Their anger, silence, or manipulation in response to your boundaries isn't proof that you're wrong. It's proof that your boundaries are working. And here's the key: boundaries must be held without guilt. Because the moment you feel guilty, you're tempted to make exceptions, to soften the line, to let the narcissist back in with just one more chance. That's when the cycle begins again. Guilt is a powerful weapon in the hands of a narcissist. They will use it to make you feel like you're the bad guy for protecting yourself. But growth demands that you learn to stand firm, even when your heart wants to give in. Real change, deep, transformative, lasting change, doesn't come from begging someone to treat you better. It comes when you decide that your self-worth isn't negotiable, and you create a life that reflects that truth. Boundaries are not about punishment. They are about protection, clarity, and self-respect. A narcissist thrives on control. They construct an illusion where they are the center of your world, the voice in your head, and the source of your worth. But the moment you begin to grow, internally, emotionally, spiritually, that illusion starts to crack. They feel it, they see it, and they fight it. Why? Because your evolution threatens everything they built to keep you small, unsure, and dependent on their validation. Growth doesn't have to be loud to be powerful. Sometimes it starts quietly. You begin reading more, journaling, going to therapy, or simply spending more time alone reflecting. You begin to ask deeper questions about what you want, what you deserve, and what you've been tolerating. And as that awareness grows, so does your strength. You no longer accept excuses that used to pacify you. You start seeing through the manipulation, the guilt, trips, the backhanded compliments. You begin to recognize patterns, and with recognition comes choice. That scares a narcissist more than anything. Narcissists operate through dominance, subtle or overt. They manipulate your insecurities to control your actions. But when you grow in self-respect, you start closing the doors they used to walk through easily. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop apologizing for setting standards. You stop shrinking to fit their narrative, and suddenly they're no longer the dominant voice in the relationship. Your inner voice becomes louder, stronger, clearer. Self-respect is a mirror that reflects who you've become, and it blinds those who once controlled you through confusion. They used to rely on your self-doubt to keep you stuck, but now your new confidence exposes their tactics. They can no longer use fear or guilt to pull your strings because you've reclaimed the power to say no, to walk away, or to not react at all. That silence, that unbothered energy, it terrifies them. What's even more threatening to a narcissist is that your growth is not about revenge. You're not trying to hurt them. You're just done being hurt. That clarity, that purpose, that peace, it disrupts their need to be the center of your universe. They lose their grip because you've stopped looking to them for validation. You've become your own source. Your healing invalidates their control, and nothing challenges a narcissist more than realizing they are no longer needed, feared, or obeyed. When you've been entangled with a narcissist, chaos becomes your norm. You're used to walking on eggshells, trying to prevent the next explosion, the next silent treatment, or the next round of manipulation. Your nervous system becomes wired to their unpredictability. You may not even realize how deeply addicted you've become to the emotional roller coaster they create, where calm moments are only brief pauses between storms. But the most powerful decision you can make in that environment is to stop feeding the chaos and choose peace instead. Peace isn't just silence. It's not avoidance or passive tolerance. True peace is a choice to disengage from drama, to no longer play the game of emotional chess where every move is calculated to gain control. Peace means removing yourself from the battleground altogether. It means refusing to argue over lies, to defend your integrity against accusations, or to fight for validation that will never be freely given. The moment you stop engaging with the chaos, you begin to reclaim your emotional autonomy. Narcissists use chaos to dominate. They want you confused, defensive, constantly explaining yourself. It keeps you distracted from the truth of how toxic the relationship really is. But when you start choosing peace, you rob them of their power. You no longer chase closure, you no longer react to provocations, and you no longer allow their behavior to dictate your emotional state. That unshakable calmness, it's a form of resistance they can't handle. Choosing peace might look like walking away from conversations that go nowhere, blocking toxic communication, or simply not answering the bait they throw at you to spark a reaction. It might mean letting go of the need to be understood by someone committed to misunderstanding you. It requires strength because chaos is seductive. It convinces you that something real is happening. But in truth, it's a cycle designed to keep you stuck. Peace creates space. Space to hear your own voice again. Space to remember who you were before the confusion. Space to heal, reflect, and rise. And in that space, your real power returns. Because power doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just silently walks away from what no longer serves your soul. By choosing peace, you're choosing self-worth, self-preservation, and self-leadership. One of the most painful illusions when dealing with a narcissist is the belief that if you just love them enough, they will change. If you show them unwavering loyalty, compassion, patience, and forgiveness, they'll finally see your worth and become the partner, friend, or family member you hoped for. But narcissists are not transformed by love. They don't interpret your affection as a reason to self-reflect or grow. Instead, they see it as a tool, another lever to pull when they want control. Love becomes a weapon in their hands, not a bridge to connection. What breaks the cycle isn't more giving. It's clarity. It's when you finally see them for who they are, not who you want them to be. It's when you stop chasing apologies that never come and start recognizing the patterns that never change. Clarity helps you separate the fantasy from the reality. You stop listening to their words and start watching their actions. You stop making excuses for their behavior and start calling it what it is: manipulation, control, and emotional abuse. And once clarity arrives, strength must follow. Strength to trust yourself again. Strength to hold the line even when they try to guilt-trip you, love, bomb you, or rage against your independence. Strength to walk away when every part of you wants to stay just a little longer, hoping this time will be different. That kind of strength doesn't appear overnight. It's built with every small act of self-respect, every boundary enforced, every truth spoken, every silent step toward healing. Overcoming a narcissist isn't about revenge or teaching them a lesson. It's about choosing your own growth over their dysfunction. It's about stepping out of their chaos and stepping into your clarity. When you stop trying to change them and start changing your response, everything shifts. They can no longer manipulate what you no longer believe. They can't use guilt to trap a person who no longer feels responsible for their emotions. They can't destroy the self-esteem of someone who has reclaimed their voice. You win not by trying harder, but by seeing clearer. Not by loving deeper, but by standing taller. Clarity exposes the truth. Strength walks in that truth without fear, without apology, and without looking back.